At this time, I am going to turn it over to Administrator Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to relocate to...
Okay.
Mayor Caffrey and Township Committee, we are pleased to present the 2016 budget for you. With us tonight is from Ms. Savachi, our auditors, Ms. Valerie Dolan and Mr. Glenn Johnson, who work with us year in and year out. And I've asked Ms. Dolan to get up and provide an overview from the auditor's point of view of the upcoming 2016 budget before you tonight.
Just wanted to say a couple of things, a couple of highlights about your budget. The approach that was taken preparing this budget, once again, without doubt from Morris Township, was it was prepared prudently and is a very fiscally responsible budget. No effort was made today to make this budget look good that would put any future budgets at risk, which is one of the big criteria that we choose to look at. You are below both your tax levy caps and below your appropriation caps, and all of this is done while still offering provide top-notch services to the residents of Morris Township. There's nothing, like I said, there's nothing that I would feel would compromise future budgets. And to highlight this budget, which I'm sure Tim will go into detail, this is all of the services and all of these things that are being done are all being done with, in fact, a tax rate reduction to the residents for the average homeowner. The township should be commended for this continued commitment to their fiscal responsibility.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dolan.
Just as we start out, it's a process that for Fran and myself and Ms. Savachi, it's a year-round process where we're reviewing the budget, preparing the budget for future years. But it really gets into the nitty-gritty starting in October, about 6 months ago, when we start working with our department heads and giving them instructions on moving forward in preparing their budgets, primarily their operating budgets and their capital requests. We take a very zero-based budgeting approach to it. We're looking at every single line item in the budget and making sure that the funds that are recommended for the line item are justified and are required for providing services to our residents and maintaining our infrastructure. So I give a great deal of credit because all of our department heads, year in, year out, they come in, they don't ask for the world. They know that there are limits. They know the fiscal responsibility that's required by the Township Committee in adopting the budgets. And so I'm very happy with when they come in, and then we meet with the standing committees and we review those budgets with the standing committees, and again go over line by line to ensure that what they are requesting is justified. And in many cases we are reducing that number, changing that number, in some cases even increasing that number if there's a justification for a service or some type of goods that we need. Once we complete that, we begin with the Finance Committee, Mr. Mancuso and Ms. Johnson and Francine, DeAngelis, our CFO, and myself. And again, we go through it. We also go through the capital, and we look at all the numbers. Francine goes through all of our statutory expenses that we're required to do, all of our salary and wages that we are mandated to do either by collective bargaining agreements or that we are an obligation for our employees, and coming up with those numbers that we can put in. We get all that put together and make sure that it's a very reasonable, responsible budget, and then we seek our assistance from Ms. Savachi in finalizing the document. And that is done. We were able to finalize that document at the end of February, going into March. Had the budget workshop meeting here and fine-tuned it some more. As you're aware, it's a very good year for Morris Township, and we have a very prudent budget. And as Mrs. Dolan indicated, our residents are going to actually see a decrease in their taxes in 2016. Usually we're coming before you and we're looking for a minor increase of usually somewhere between $45 to $60 per household. And this year we're going to see $45 reduction for the average household on the municipal side of the budget. As our priorities are for 2016 and have been every year, is that we maintain our fiscally responsible, that the services that we provide to our residents are maintained, and where we can, we want to increase those services and keep the costs down. And then we also want to strengthen and maintain our infrastructure. What I mean by that is that we make sure that our roads are paved, that roads that need to be reconstructed are reconstructed, that all of our buildings and all of our facilities are maintained. Kind of go with the Fram oil filter, either pay now or pay later, and certainly, staying a step ahead of the game with repairs or maintenance of those facilities keeps them in very good shape and reduces our overall costs as we move on. These are the budget challenges. Is the biggest thing that in the budget, it's a $35 million budget. $13 million of that is in employee salaries. One of the things that we have to deal with every year that we have not a lot of control over is our health care costs. As you all know, health care goes up 8 to 10% on average per year. We have to count that in, and also that goes towards our 2% tax levy cap. So that's a major consideration when we're looking at the overall numbers, along with also our pension costs. Our pension costs went up a little bit this year. In past years, they've gone up 8 to 10%. This year, it's a little over 2%. As I spoke before, we also want to maintain the infrastructure of our roadways, our buildings, and so we do our capital fund project funding. Township Committee has taken a policy that we will only incur debt of what we retire, so we're not increasing any new debt. We've been able to maintain that in this year's budget, and also add on some additional projects that we will pay through the capital improvement fund directly. Tax appeals are always a concern, have been a concern since 2008, 2009. At the end of this year, we have over $1.7 million in exposure on tax appeals. However, the Township Committee has been very prudent in the years to make sure that that is funded in a reserve, so that if those do come to fruition, we have the funds to pay for that without having to raise taxes. And we've been able to do that again this year. The other factor that we have is the property revaluation that has taken place. It's kind of taken that pie, it's revenue neutral, but it's just divided it up as to how the taxes are paid to meet our tax levy. We do get what's called state aid. It's about $3.2 million. It's been flat since 2010. State aid is somewhat of a misnomer. It's really tax energy receipts, and if we were taking that directly, we'd be taking about $6 million. As you can see, we're only taking in about $3.2 million. Years past, going back 7, 8 years ago, we were up well close to $5 million in state aid. So we're losing at least $1.5 million a year towards the municipal budget for that. These are our pension costs. Our pension costs are the public employees retirement system and the police and fire retirement system. These are mandated costs for us. They're going up about $44,000 this year. They're just under $2.5 million, coming in $2.3 million of the budget for pension. One of the things that has been difficult for years is with the tax appeals is maintaining our commercial tax base. I'm happy to report it's been remaining stable. There's 2 bars up there because with the reval now we have the equalized value and what they are. With the equalized value in past years and the current year assessment, it's about $800 million in commercial assessed properties, and that has remained stable, and hopefully that will increase with new development of various locations in the township that we expect in the near future. One of the things, as I said, we don't have control over, but has an adverse impact on the municipal budget is the cost of our state mandates. This year, they're about $5.6 million. It's about a $141,000 increase over 2010. 2015. And it's been up and down with pension costs. Had a significant drop when we implemented Chapter 78 for medical expenses, for the cost sharing with our employees. Our employees are now paying the full amount that was mandated by Chapter 78, so that number is going to be stable from this point forward and moving on. We're not going to see any significant dips with more money coming in from our employees towards medical costs except for what is mandated by statute. The other variables that we go in, we're still seeing fairly low interest rates on our funds. However, we have seen an increase in our revenue, so that is up slightly. Our union labor contracts are settled, and we have union labor contracts with police, fire, and Teamsters that represent DPW, Parks and Recreation, and our sewer utility. And all of those contracts are settled through 2017 with a 2% increase per year in wages, not for the employee, but for the entire bargaining unit. So it takes in the steps and the actual raises that are less than 2%. But the max on the total bargaining unit is 2%. The capital projects that I spoke before to maintain our infrastructure. And one of the things that we see this year is about $1 million reduction in debt service. We had a spike last year of about $1 million. It's bringing us back down to 2014, 2015 levels, and our debt service payment is about $3 million. Had been almost $4 million last year, but then back to where we were in previous years. As I spoke last year also, the recycling market fell out, where we were taking in close to $300,000 for recycling materials. We're lucky if we're going to take in $25,000 this year towards it. But we still have all the costs that go with it, with manpower and what we're getting for the recycling materials. Glass and bottles, we're actually paying paperwork, making a little bit of money, so it's not a lot. We maintain the high level of services in Morris Township through our police, our fire, Morris Minutemen, our OEM, provide top-notch health services and clinics for our residents, provide trash pickup, recycling, and road repairs. Probably have one of the best recreation programs in the state of New Jersey, managed by Bill Pulse and his crew. And we give programs from infants all the way to our seniors. And as you've seen our brochure, there are numerous programs that are put out to our residents at cost. And then we have the professional services of the people that are in our building, from our finance office, our clerk's office, our health department, administration, engineering, IT, that all work together to serve our residents and make the operation of the township on a day-to-day basis go flawlessly. We look for shared services, and when we look for shared services, there has to be a component that it benefits Morris Township. And we've done that with the joint municipal court. Still seeing some significant savings, over $150,000 a year. We have sewer contracts with our neighboring municipalities. We have the joint public library with Morristown, and then public sharing with for emergency services with the County of Morris, and then surrounding municipalities for police and fire and EMS, and providing support to one another. And then also with health services with Hanover Township and nursing services from them. Key savings initiatives budget.